Welcome to Hoovie's Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube, and it is Bugatti delivery day here at Chicago Motor Cars in Naperville. My Bugatti is fixed and it is ready to go 500 miles back to Kansas. We're gonna drive it back today and then go over how much it cost to fix the thing. But first of all, April, am I alive? Is this happening? What do you have there? Is that some snuff to wake up?
Oh yeah, baby.
That's my racing key?
Yes.
Look at your nails too. You did the Bugatti nails. There's my racing key to go over 250 miles an hour in my quad turbo 16 cylinder Bugatti Veyron. This is absolutely insane. Now, some of you probably saw the video a few weeks ago where I checked on the car and actually agreed to purchase it when it was in pieces. The whole center console was taken apart because it would not go in reverse, and that was thanks to this electronic shifter that was all apart. And now it is back together. Getting that handle off took some doing, but eventually an upholstery shop was able to break it off. Oh, the speed key, it goes in there. Okay, I'm getting distracted, but yeah, all back together and all cleaned up. And now the aero is deployed to where you can see the exhaust. It's, this is absolutely nuts. I cannot believe that this is mine. It was one thing to see this thing sort of dirty and all blown apart in service, but to see it all put together in a showroom under the lights, holy smokes. There's some other bits that are gonna come behind it. The factory wheels will come eventually. They'll get shipped from Florida where this car came from. Ancient tires on it. The quote currently is $60,000 to replace the factory tires. It's a very specific tire for the Veyron only that's mounted in a very weird way. The pack system, and obviously absolutely insane. Bugatti's actually working though on a more reasonable wheel and tire choice for the Veyron coming soon. But for now, the HREs do look fantastic on it. And it does have the Vitesse headlights. We do have the factory headlights as well. I think there's one other little cool thing in addition to the speed key. It's in this bag right here. There's the wheel caps, the first aid kit, and then it does come with its Palm Pilot. Yeah, this is needed to get into certain things in the car. This ancient system is a way to communicate and do changes to the setting in the car because it is pretty basic inside. They didn't put any infotainment in or anything like that, so the car ages well. But you need this to plug into the car to make any kind of change. So with Ed Bullion, we saw his Bugatti in the previous video, but because it was owned by a bunch of rappers, this is long gone, and his speed key is long gone. But I get both. And I have a long stretch of highway to get back to Kansas, some 500 miles, and it's going to be very hard to keep my foot out of it. But along with the wheels, I'm going to get the service history sent to me as well from Bugattis, so we can go over how much it costs to sort the car out and how much it costs to own it over the years. And I'm sure that's going to be enlightening or terrifying, but let's have a honeymoon first, taking this thing home. April, you ready? Well, I knew I needed to pack light, but... Slight problem. There's no room behind the seat either. And start. Nice to have the console all the way together, and that noise. Oh, okay. Now I need to get it up off the ground. There's only two modes, the handling and normal, but we want to be up in normal because we're driving at night in Chicago and the roads are, you know. I'm pulling out my Bugatti Veyron. This is unbelievable. This shouldn't be happening. And it's working. It has no warning lights. It's not a hoopty. I'm the luckiest dude in the world. All right, out we go as the sun sets. And that's a car making that noise? Oh my God! Okie dokie. Well, we have a short drive to where we're staying for the night, and then I was going to drive cross country during the day. And it's going to be pretty much impossible not to get a speeding ticket, because that's... Oh my God!
A few moments later.
The check engine light has come on, as you can see, which is a normal Volkswagen thing to happen, but then that light, stop check coolant, has now joined it. I'm hoping because we're parked on a hill and not that we're dumping all of our coolant out right now. So on the Veyron we have 10 radiators to check. It looks dry. I know when it was on the rally, it caught a radiator and they had to replace it, but then when the engine split apart, they would have dumped all the coolant out too. I think when I used the heat for the first time, it just, it burped, so.
Day 2.
Good morning from $1 Million Hoopty Land. I drove it about 50 miles up to the Twin Lakes area in Wisconsin, April's parents' house, and they were kind enough to give me a garage stall for the night. My future father-in-law labeled it for me. Very nice of him. He's retiring an old Cadillac Northstar, so that's the leak right there. But as you can see, the garage floor is totally dry. None of the 10 radiators appear to be leaking, although it could be caught in this car's belly pans. So what is most likely going on in Bugatti service, and the car wizard agree that the system probably burped when I started using the heat, and the coolant level is a little bit low, but there's no reaching the coolant tank easily on this car. This side is for fuel, the other side is for adding oil, but the coolant reservoir is somewhere underneath this panel right here. You have to get the spoiler in a sort of upward position, and then there's 10 bolts to remove this entire piece, including the tail lights, to get to a lot of the service areas on the engine. So that is the coolant issue. It could be the coolant level sensor, but I don't think so, because it started acting up when I was parked on a hill and also taking a turn. So I think the sensor is working just fine. It was just right on the edge, but now it's on all the time, which makes me wonder, is it losing coolant somewhere and I'm just not seeing it? So kind of scary in that sense. So it could be one of the 10 radiators, or it could be drinking the coolant, which would be very, very bad. I just went through all of that with the Land Rover Evoque and that Ford 2-liter turbo. So Lord, I hope not, but the car is running great. It's not smoking, it's pulling hard, just an amazing machine. The noises that come from these intakes and these turbos behind you, oh, it's just astounding. But there is that pesky check engine light that came on about 5 minutes into the drive, and that may be the thing that keeps it in Chicago a little longer. Yeah. She's still a Volkswagen at heart. And I do have to say, and it is kind of obvious, that I don't blame Perrin or Chicago Motor Cars for any of this at all. I knew what I was buying. I knew I was getting a car fresh out of service after a lot of major work. There'd be some hiccups, and they are taking care of everything. Rolling out the red carpet, I can drive it back to the Bugatti service center and have them fix it. If it's something bigger or something that's going to take a while, I'm going to fly home. They're going to ship the car to me. There's no issues. There's nothing to worry about at all. So we have about an hour drive to Bugatti service, and we'll see. Maybe it's something simple. Maybe they can top it off and some sensor's loose or whatever. It'll be an easy thing, and I'll be back on the road still driving it back to Kansas. Fingers crossed, but as you can see, she is running fantastically. Oh, mama. So we saw Ed in my last video with his Veyron, and back when he was searching to buy one on Auto Tempest. And thanks to Auto Tempest for sponsoring today's video. One of the options at the time was this car. When you're searching for Veyrons, there are really not many choices out there, so you're probably just going to search nationwide for all Bugattis, since there will only be a handful for sale at any given time. If you're looking for something a little bit less insane though, you'll appreciate the filters Auto Tempest offers to narrow things down. And that's important because they pull together so many listings from all the major listing sites everywhere you'd want to search for a car. They're also constantly improving the site and adding many new features, so if you haven't been there for a while, go back and check out Auto Tempest. They just added the much requested dark mode to their iOS and Android apps, and you can also now see the full price history on every car they have listed. So if a seller has dropped or raised the price, you'll see that, but you'll also see if it's appeared on Auto Tempest before and what the mileage and price was back then. Amazing. They've got more to come for analyzing price trends as well. Please do me and yourself a favor and click the link below to check it out and search for a car yourself. And if you know somebody searching for a car, be sure to tell them about Auto Tempest. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. But back to Ed Bullion. He negotiated and bought his, and this continued to sit in service and wait. So when I was searching, there were only 3 or 4 for sale. I think I screenshotted Auto Tempest at the time so I can show you. And this one didn't have a price listed. But Ed knew the car. He knew Perrin for many years, and he was able to get us in touch. And that's how he was able to make this crazy trade deal, trading in my Countach and my BMW Z8 towards this car that he was pretty buried in because of all the service costs to fix it up. But as you can see, it's not done yet. So like I said, I'm not going to chance this thing like it's some kind of Volkswagen product. So we're going to drive it back to the Bugatti dealer for service and hope it's just a top off of the coolant and something simple to solve the check engine light. And if it is, then I can just hit the road and get back to Wichita. If not, I'll fly home and try again at a later date. It's a process. I'm not mad at all. I knew what I was getting into, and I do know it will all be sorted out and wonderful at some point. It's just not quite there yet. So let's hit the road. Hopefully we'll make it to Chicago without any issues.
Stop your coolant! Stop your coolant! Stop your coolant!
1 hour later. Two hours later.
Well, it was a nice, pleasant drive to Bugatti service, other than the constant annoyance of the lights flashing, but they are now all gone very quickly. It wasn't a big deal to top off the coolant. They're used to popping off the rear engine hatch, so they did that lickety-split. But then they ran the codes, and well, that's the bad news. The codes, yeah, the first one is for the evaporative emissions control system, a leak detected, which Tom, the Bugatti service advisor, said is probably a gas cap code if it was just filled up, and the thing had just been filled up when we set off. The problem is there's some other codes that were in there, some little misfires here and there, system 2 lean, bank 1, and an implausible signal from the engine control module, along with a tire pressure monitor system light, which actually the tire pressure monitor was on. I did have to put some air in it. I do feel like Bugatti service is hoping that all the other codes are just sort of stored inactive, you know, just little nonsense codes that Volkswagen, Audi, Bentley products love to do. And yeah, the active one with the emission control is for the gas cap. I asked the car wizard when I sent him this little screenshot, and he said it's also possible when they had the engine out and everything out, they left an evap line disconnected somewhere, and that could cause a 2 lean situation and multiple misfires. But the thing is, this car has always ran great this whole time. I put over 100 miles on it, and it's never stumbled or misfired once. So I'm leaning towards these being old codes and everything being okay for the drive home. So I think we're doing this. Still, the Bugatti tech said to take it on a nice little drive down Lakeshore Drive just to make sure none of the codes come back, you know, get on the throttle, get off, just see if you can get it to act up. So that's what we're going to do, and fingers crossed. Insane, absolutely insane, this car. Bonkers. And it's still a very, very comfortable luxury roller at the same time. I have heated seats, nice climate control. The seats are pretty hard, but not ridiculously uncomfortable. The ride for a sports car, it is pretty good. I'm in love. Just behave, Bugatti. It'll be a pretty good shakedown cruise to Kansas. That's about 700 miles. 10 hours! And a lot of gas. Just in the 100 miles that I put on it, it has used 10 gallons of fuel. So yeah, we're not even getting 10 miles per gallon. What a thing.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
Well, shoot. We're about 2 hours outside of Chicago. Finally stopped for gas the first time. And it never flashed before. Interesting. Right after I filled up with gas. Why would it do that?
12 o'clock midnight.
Hello.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Hi, good. I'm Trooper Wynn with the State Police. So the reason I stopped you is going a little bit fast.
Yeah.
I just need to see
Apologize.
your driver's license and insurance, please.
Yes, sir. This
Thank
thing doesn't have cruise control, and I just got it yesterday. We're driving back to
Yeah.
Kansas from
Not
Chicago.
a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a sweet car.
Thank you. Yeah, just picked it up. We got caught in Chicago traffic, and then
looks
there's
good.
no
I'll give that
sense
back to you.
of like how fast this thing's going unless you're looking at the speedometer.
Yeah, I
And
believe that.
There's no cruise control, so it's just like, yeah.
Do you have like a registration or anything, or like anything with the VIN number on it or anything like that? by chance?
No, if it's not on the back, I'm sorry. Like I don't.
Okay, yeah, it has the temporary registration
Okay.
there. Do you know where it's registered out of? Like what state or anything?
Well, it's going to be in Kansas, but I got it in Chicago.
In Chicago?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try running it through Chicago and see if I can get it to come back that way.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
all right, sir. Well, just hang out for me for a few minutes. I'm
All
gonna
right.
try to run the license plate really quick, and then I'll come back up and let you know what's going on. Okay?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
He didn't steal it.
Yeah, I believe it.
I got pulled over, and the check engine light came on at the same time. Huh.
Hey, sir.
Yes.
So I just wrote you a warning tonight.
Oh, thank you so
not
much.
a ticket or anything. No finer court date, nothing like that. Okay.
Oh,
So I
appreciate
have
it.
that in your driver's license.
What's local? Where are you local to?
Here in Springfield area.
Okay.
I'm a state trooper. So.
Oh, awesome. All right.
Do you have any questions for me about anything?
No, thank you, and thank you for your service, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Take care. Get home safe. Just try to keep a little
Appreciate-
bit better eye on your speed. Okay.
Yeah, I think I will.
All right.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yep, take care. Watch out for deer out here too. So.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's
Yep.
dark so early up here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, folks. Take care.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I got off. Get off. I'm saying the check engine light, but I got off the speeding ticket. First 24 hours of Bugatti ownership sure has been boring. Jeez. Okay.
Well, my Bugatti made it back to Kansas without any serious problems. You saw the check engine light, but I wanted to drive and experience the car, put several hundred miles on it to figure out what was going on. And I don't think anybody previously had done this, and I've actually figured it out. The only time it gets a check engine light is when I fill up the tank. I get a gross evaporative emissions leak, I get a system to lean code, and I get a misfire code. But after I reset it, after driving it for a few minutes, it doesn't come back until I fill up again. Now, if I don't fill up all the way, I stop 2 gallons short, no check engine light, no problems. So that means there is something going on with the evaporative emissions system, which reroutes fuel vapor into the tank and then circulates it around. That way, it's not like old cars where fuel vapors just sort of vent into the air. Something could be clogged, something could not be working. There is a vent on this system that opens when needed. There's a charcoal canister, all kinds of crazy things to make this work. But also, since the drivetrain was out of this car twice, it's possible that they rerouted the lines wrong, and that is the issue, which it makes me wonder, because every time I cold start this car, I hear a bubbling, a bloop, bloop, bloop. You can hear it for yourself. Yeah, a weird bubbling noise from the tank that goes away after a minute or two. So obviously I have something to deal with in the evaporative emission system, and hopefully it's reachable without taking the engine out and all of that stuff. Bugatti Service is going to send me a diagram for this to make sure it's all routed correctly. We can also smoke test it and do some other diagnostics. It's the same as a Volkswagen Audi system, so it can be figured out. Hopefully it is all reachable because the fuel tank is, well, right in front of the drivetrain and right behind the driver, so reaching it would be very difficult. But yeah, Bugatti Service records time, how much it costs to sort it out. And I think some of these repairs in here weren't necessary because of what's going on with the tank venting. But the Bugatti is infamous for its crazy high oil change, and that is certainly the case. 40 hours of labor at a Bugatti dealer, but they did a lot more than just an oil change. They went way, way deep, and I'm very appreciative that I didn't have to pay for a lot of this. So the cheapest part, other than a few bolts and washers and stuff like that, is the engine oil at $53 a quart, but that's 16 quarts of oil, making it a grand total of $858. There's also a lot of filters, and I'm not sure what filters are what because they're not really labeled. There's one that says air filter element, and that one is $404 per filter times 2, total $808. But also there were other filter elements at $1,042.19 and another one for $1,031.12. I'm not sure what those two filters were for, but there was also a pressure filter for $990 because they went through the suspension, which is an active suspension. They also went through the brakes and the all-wheel drive system, so I imagine some of those filters were there. With the transmission, they replaced the gearbox oil pump. That was $3,610.59. The transmission oil, it was 18 quarts, $93 a quart, $1,677.42. And then there was the suspension service. 2 of the accumulators were replaced, $617 a piece times 2, $1,235. And then there was fluid for the axle and the transfer case, $187 and $191. And then there was the brake fluid. This one, pretty crazy. 4 quarts at $644 a quart, $2,578.08. Yeah. The labor for all of this, $15,892.19. 40 hours of labor at about $400 an hour. So that was the service. They also went through and checked some things, and they noted that the car had a misfire code, but Chicago Motor Cars declined the repair because they wanted an independent shop to do it to save some money. Certainly understandable there. And then a lot of little O-ring screws, washers, stuff like that. The one that sticks out, 8 washers of some kind at $49.77 per washer, $398.16. So the grand total for this service, $37,825 for the service. But they weren't done yet. So there was that misfire code that they're talking about. Took it to an independent shop. And yeah, this is a tune-up on a Bugatti Veyron, 23.5 hours at $6,627 just for the labor. So the labor rate was, $280 at this place. Ignition coils times 16 ignition coils, $3,923. Spark plugs times 16 at $57 each, $916. Coolant, because they disconnect some things, $113.52. And then shop supplies, which are a flat 5%, $579.02, brings the grand total to $12,159.38. So then it got to Chicago, the transmission started acting up again, because in Florida they thought the transmission was a problem. It wasn't. They put the other one back in. They didn't charge for any of this, so it's not in the service records, but they also tried to fix the shifter, but it didn't last very long, so it needed a shifter replacement. So Bugatti Chicago, who I was working with, replaced the shifter. That was a $6,000 shifter, and I don't have the total for it as far as the labor, but let's just say $6,900 for a nice price, which means the grand total for reconditioning this Bugatti, $56,884. And obviously there's a bit more to go because of the evaporative emissions leak. So, yeah, very, very spicy, but I think we are at the end of the rainbow when it comes to getting this car completely sorted out. And by accident, I actually got an invoice from a McLaren P1. Everybody talks about the Bugatti being the most ridiculous expensive repairs, but this car was traded in on a McLaren P1, and Chicago Motor Cars, when they sent all these records, accidentally sent me this car as well. So if you think Bugatti's exclusive to this, it's not. It has the reputation for this crazy service cost, but it's not exclusive to Bugatti. They had to replace a shock on a McLaren P1. It was $13,370.98. The damper pipe, $2,456. The accumulators, $29.95 each, $2,995. Times 4, $11,980. Bleed the suspension system, $2,405. That's $30,000. Then a window switch, $939. And then a head unit, because the stereo was out, $4,150. The amplifier, $2,000. The grand total for that one, $39,594 for way less work than what went into this Bugatti. And then the battery failed, so I know they had to spend over $100,000 for that. So there really is no winning in this hypercar club. The Bugatti one is the most famous one, but you go with any kind of hypercar, and that's the level of service, like aircraft type costs, and it is a whole new world to me. Jeez. Whew. So, do I regret buying this thing and trading in two serviceable supercars for a very crazy to own hypercar? And no, I do not regret it for a second. This thing is amazing. I am deeply, madly in love with it. And being the world's poorest Bugatti owner, I'm hoping I can join forces with the second poorest Bugatti owner, Ed Bullion, and others who have attempted to keep these cars going at a reasonable sum. Houston Crosta Royalty Exotics, who rebuilt the famous Flood Bugatti that was driven into a lake in an insurance scam. He brought that back to life, and he will be a wealth of knowledge, I'm sure. Plus, I hope some of the Bugatti dealers are rooting for me, and hopefully Bugatti wants to shed this reputation of being the most expensive cars to maintain, when really they're all doing it. McLaren, Ferrari, Lamborghini, you name it. They're getting in that crazy level that the Bugatti is famous for. And just owning this car, yes, it will be very, very expensive, but it is an absolute dream come true. I was just thinking about it, how I'd play Forza 4 for hours. That was the one where Jeremy Clarkson would voice over on the cars. And I looked up the old Forza video of Clarkson doing his commentary, and I realized my garage looks a lot like the space where they would do these CGI videos of the cars before you went out and raced them. So I commissioned my cameraman Jake to recreate something. And that's how I'm going to end this video, in addition to thanking you all so much for watching, because you all watching has made this Bugatti purchase possible. And if you haven't subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. About 30% of people watching this video aren't subscribed, which is definitely something. But in addition to thanking you all, Bugatti paid for by YouTube. Absolutely insane. I'm going to end with my own recreation of Forza, because 15 years ago, I'm a kid playing Forza, never imagining I would ever be able to actually drive one of these, let alone own one. It's just unbelievable, and thank you so much.
Above 155 miles an hour, they stop trying to classify hurricanes. 155 miles an hour is a Category 5, the kind that killed 12,000 burly Texans in 1900. There is no Category 6, because if there was, there'd be nobody left to classify it once it had passed. The Bugatti Veyron will pass through the air at 252 miles an hour, so you have some idea of the forces of nature at work here, and the reasons why it needs to haul that vast aeroplane wing into the airstream to keep it stable. It's also why it needs 16 cylinders, 8 litres, 4 turbochargers, 10 radiators, and 1,000 horsepower. Everything about this car is Category 6. Except, that is, the skill level required to drive it. Your mother could. A flappy paddle gearbox developed by people who develop Formula 1 gearboxes, and a four-wheel drive system developed with some considerable amount of head scratching by rocket scientists, means you just get in and drive. And you won't drive anything faster. Anything.